NCBM 0324, Section 2.4, Rounding and Finance Formula Practice, Part 1. Rounding whole numbers and decimals, really important in math, especially in a class like Math 1324, where you're dealing with application problems and you're dealing with money, right, in your finance section. So let's review the rules for rounding. So when we're asked to round, we're often asked to round to a certain place value. We have here a common place value chart. Now this is by no means all of our place values. We can add more decimals to the right hand side, more values to the left hand side as well. It's just a short little snippet of our more common place values that we're asked to round to. Now something to note, looking at our decimal, we'll see that the values to the right hand side, this is going to be filled with those decimal places. And the values to the left, these are going to be our whole numbers. Now remembering the pattern of the names will be useful as well. And there is a pattern. Notice that your decimals on the right hand side, tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths, all of these end with a THS. So that'll be a clue to us that when we're asked to round to a decimal or a place value that ends with a THS, our answer will have, in fact, a decimal. On the reverse side of it, on the other side of our decimal place, you'll notice that ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, they end with a single S. So that'll tell us that our answer will be a whole number. There won't be any more decimals after it. Now to the actual rules for rounding. We'll use the following guidelines. The first thing we're going to do is identify the given place value. So what place are we looking for? We'll use our chart to make that determination. Then we're going to underline all the digits to the left of that place value and also underline the actual place value. So these are the numbers, what we're going to underline, that will potentially stay the same, except for that last digit. There's a possibility that it may change. And how do we know if that last value we underline will stay the same? Well, we're going to look to the number to the right. So let's circle the digit to the right of the given place value, the last number we have underlined. We're going to circle the number to the right of that and ask ourselves the following question. Is the circled digit greater than or equal to 5? Is my value to the right 5, 6, 7, 8, 9? If my answer is yes, then I'm going to add 1 to my given place value. So we'll increase the last number we have underlined. We'll increase it by 1. If, though, the circled number is not greater than or equal to 5, so if it's smaller than 5, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, then we're not going to change the digit at all. It's going to remain the same. So then all the underlined part is going to remain the same. We wouldn't change the given place value. So it all comes down to that number that we circle to the right of that place value. Now what happens once we make that determination? Well, our fourth step, if we are rounding whole numbers, we're going to rewrite the underlined part and replace all the digits to the right of that given place value, the one that we potentially changed in our third step, but we're going to replace everything to the right, all digits to the right, with zeros up until we get to the ones place. So if we're rounding to the thousandths, after that thousandths place value, we're going to have zeros coming after it. If, though, we're rounding a decimal, we're still going to rewrite the underlined number, any numbers that we had underlined, and then we're going to remove all the digits to the right. So instead of putting zeros after that decimal that we may have rounded to, we're just going to let those other digits drop. Let's try out these rules. Example 1A, round to the nearest hundredth. So looking at our digit, we have 3.42901. My instructions are telling me to round to the nearest hundredth. So key part of this directions is that TH after that 100. So that TH is telling me, looking at my place value chart, that TH tells me that I'm going to be looking at the decimals. Hundredth is my second decimal place. It's also known as the cents when we're talking money. So I'm going to, in this case, look at my second decimal. So following my instructions, my rules, I've identified my place value, and I'm going to underline all the digits to the left of it, including that place value. So that means I'm going to underline the 3, the 4, and then the 2. So the 2 is what I'm looking at. Now the second step, let's circle a digit to the right of that place value. So what's to the right of that hundredths place? Well, in this case, it is the 9. And then I ask myself, is that 9 greater than or equal to 5? And 9 is bigger than 5, so we're in the situation where we're going to add 1. So because of that 9, we're going to add 1 to the 2 and make it a 3. Now to write our answer. For the decimals, we rewrite the underlying number with our change in this case. Our underline is 3.43, and we're going to remove all the digits to the right of that. So we drop the 9, the 0, and the 1. And our rounded answer will be 3.43. Let's try another one. Let's look at 3a. So now we're looking at round to the nearest tenths. So once again, we're looking at that TH, right? That tenths part tells us that we're looking for a decimal. Let's check in case we need to look. Tenths place at our chart, that looks to be 1 decimal, right? The tenths is right after our decimal place here. So 1 decimal is what we're looking at. So our value for part A, negative 2.52738. My rules tell me, since I'm looking at the tenths place, I'm going to underline the negative 2 and the 5. And even though it's a negative, the rules still apply. Doesn't matter if the values are positive or negative. Once I have my underline, I'm going to look to the right of that place value. In this case, that's the 2. And ask myself, is this 2 greater than or equal to 5? Is the 2 bigger than or equal to 5? It's not, it's smaller. So that means we're going to remain the same. So that 2.5 is going to stay. And the answer will be the negative 2.5. Notice no other decimals after that come along, right? The 2, 7, 3, 8, all of those are removed. And our answer only has that tenths place. Let's look at example 4a. This one's a little more interesting. We want to now round to the nearest cent. So cent doesn't have those key parts like our other questions did, but I know it's a special position in my place value. The cents is the hundredths place, right? Cents is talking about money, and in money we can go up to 2 decimal places. So we're going to use our hundredths position when we see the word cents. So similar to our first example, we're going 2 decimal places. So on part A, we have 3.099745. So I'm going to underline up to those 2 decimal places, the hundredths. And I'm going to circle the number to the right of that. So it's this other 9 here. And looking at my circled value, it is greater than 5. So that means that this 9 is going to increase by 1. But look at the value we have already there. If I increase this by 1, then that's going to be a 10, which means then I have to also move over in my decimals. So this one's a little bit trickier because the rounding affects more than just that single place value. And that's because we have a 9 in that particular position. So my answer in this case will be 3.10. So if we were talking money, my answer would be $3.10, right? If this was a situation with money. So watch for those cases where your rounding, pushes other numbers up, and that's okay. That's just the way the values work. Let's try some where we're rounding in the whole numbers. Let's look at example 6. We want to round to the nearest thousands. So we're only ending with an S here. So now we know we're in the whole number situation. And the value for part A, we have 48,273,982. So we want this to the thousands place. If we look back at our chart, thousands looks to be our fourth place here, ones, tens, hundreds, thousands. So the fourth from our decimal to the left side in our whole numbers. So we're going to underline everything to the left of this and then look at the number to the right. So let's do that. I'm going to underline all the way to that 3. And then I'm going to look at the number to the right and make my determination. So I have a 9. What's that 9 going to do to that 3? The 3 is in the thousands place. Well, the 9 is bigger than 5, so it's going to make the 3 go up to a 4. And in this case, because we're talking whole numbers, when I write my answer, everything to the left remains the same, right? 48, 2, 7, 4 now. The 3 moved up to a 4. And then the numbers to the right of that 4 are going to drop down to zeros. So the rounded value is 48,274,000. One more. Let's try example 8. Now in this one, we're rounding to the nearest whole number. Whole number. So where were our whole numbers in our place value chart? Well, our whole numbers are to the left. So the first whole number we have is this ones place. So when we're asked to round to the nearest whole number, we're asked to round to this position here. So we're looking at what's happening right at that decimal place. So let's look at part A. We have 2,354.567. So whole number, that ones place, I'm going to underline everything up to that on the left. Then I circle the number to the right. That's the 5. So the 5 is going to determine what happens to this 4. Well, is 5 greater than or equal to 5? Well, it's equal to. So that means that the 4 is going to go up by 1 number. And everything to the right-hand side drops away. So my answer here will be 2,355. And that's our rounding.